Namaste, dear devotees. Welcome to today's discourse, dated March 22nd. Sri Brahmachaitanya Maharaj beautifully explains how ever remembering God makes our worldly life proper. Often, people assume that spirituality and worldly life are separate, but in reality, they are interconnected. Maharaj tells us that living in constant remembrance of God does not disrupt our duties. Rather, it brings harmony, peace, and ultimate fulfillment. Let's delve into this profound teaching and understand how integrating devotion in daily life leads to true spiritual progress. Narada once asked Lord Krishna, "Where can you be found with certainty?" Krishna replied, "O Narada, I may not be found in Vaikuntha, nor even with my beloved Rukmini, but most positively with my devotee. Where else can God be found but with his devotees? They live in him, and he resides in their hearts. Without devotees, the divine presence is not manifested." The omnipresence of God can only be realized by those who have unwavering faith. Atheists deny God's existence, claiming that their family, material possessions, and surroundings are all that they have. However, how can one accept the creation and deny the Creator? First, we must believe in God, open our hearts to Him, and cultivate faith. When we do so, we realize that God has been with us all along. Some argue that devotion to God can interfere with worldly responsibilities. But, how can life be led properly if we ignore its very Creator? The truth is, those who live in constant remembrance of God find their worldly life becomes more harmonious and fulfilling. Giving up worldly life is not necessary, but we must give up attachment to it. The story of Jada Bharata beautifully illustrates this point. The life of Jada Bharata is a profound example of how attachment can hinder spiritual progress and how detachment leads to liberation. Personal reflection. Jada Bharata was once a great king named Bharata, after whom India, Bharat, is named. After ruling wisely for years, he renounced his kingdom and went into the forest for deep meditation and devotion. One day, while meditating by a river, he saw a pregnant deer drinking water. Suddenly, a lion roared, and the frightened deer jumped in panic. Due to the shock, it gave birth mid-air, and the newborn fawn fell into the river. The mother deer, traumatized, ran away and died. Bharata, moved by compassion, rescued the helpless fawn. At first, he cared for it while maintaining his devotion, but gradually his attachment to the deer grew stronger. He constantly worried about it, whether it had food, whether it was safe, until his meditation on God was completely replaced by thoughts of the deer. When Bharata passed away, his last thought was of the deer, and due to this attachment, he was reborn as a deer in his next life. However, because of his past spiritual merits, he retained memory of his previous birth and understood his mistake. In his deer form, he lived near sages, hearing their spiritual discourses. After this life, he was reborn as Jada Bharata, a human, but this time, he acted like a dull and mute person to avoid forming any attachments. He remained detached from the world, focused only on God, and eventually attained liberation, moksha. This story teaches us that external renunciation is not enough. We must renounce inner attachment. Whether we live in a palace or a forest, if our mind is entangled in worldly attachments, we remain bound. True devotion is remembering God constantly and surrendering to His will without being attached to anything worldly. Sri Brahmachaitanya Maharaj emphasizes that living in constant remembrance of God makes our worldly duties smoother and more meaningful. Just like Jada Bharata initially got entangled in attachment, but later attained liberation, we too must strive to detach our minds from the temporary and focus on the eternal. Performing our duties is necessary, but let them be accompanied by namasmarana, chanting God's name, and devotion. The moment we surrender and accept that God is always with us, we experience peace, contentment, and divine grace. Let us all pray to the Almighty to bless us with unwavering faith and remembrance, so that our worldly life remains harmonious and spiritually fulfilling. Jai Shri Ram.